Lijep pozdrav iz Sarajevskog studija Newsmax Balkans. Ja sam Mika Ferrer-Gotić, a vi pratite Puls Planete. U večerašnjoj emisiji gledate. Izrael nastavlja napade na Gazu. Humanitarna pomoć u enklavu nije ušla već 3 mjeseca. Civilno stanovništvo ostalo bez lijekova. Bidenova misija povlačenja američkih trupa iz Afganistana kobno završila za ovu zemlju nakon pada u ruke Talibana. O misiji govorim s američkim veteranom Emirom Hadžićem. Donald Trump izjavio da je trgovinska politika njegove administracije zasnovana na carinama uspješna nakon što je Kina najavila da odgovara njegovim potezima povećanjem carina na američku robu na 125%. U izraelskom napadu na Han Yunis pogođena je porodična kuća u kojoj je ubijeno 10 članova jedne porodice. Još 2 osobe su ubijene u istom tom napadu, a bespilotnim letjelicama gađan je grad Bej Lahija, gdje su desetine ubijenih i povrijeđenih. Dodatni problemi za Palestince, kako upozorava Svjetska zdravstvena organizacija, su kritično niske zalihe lijekova zbog blokade pomoći u Gazi, što otežava održavanje bolnica, čak i onih djelimično u funkciji.
Protekle sedmice 75% UN-ovih misija unutar Gaze je odbijeno ili onemogućeno. Ova blokada ostavlja porodice gladne, neuhranjene, bez čiste vode, skloništa i odgovarajuće zdravstvene skrbi i povećava rizik od bolesti i smrti. Svjetska zdravstvena organizacija je iskoristila prekid vatre da opskrbi zdravstveni sistem i naša skladišta. Nakon 6 sedmica blokade te su zalihe opasno niske i nestaće za 2 do 4 sedmice ako se opsada ne prekine. Svjetska zdravstvena organizacija poziva na hitno ukidanje blokade pomoći, zaštitu zdravstvene skrbi, nesmetan humanitarni pristup Gazi, trenutni nastavak svakodnevnih medicinskih evakuacija, oslobađanje talaca koji su još uvijek zarobljeni u Gazi i iznad svega prekid vatre.
U Briselu je ove sedmice počeo sastanak ukrajinske kontakt grupe za odbranu, a uz učešće predstavnika od oko 40 zemalja, uglavnom saveznica u NATO-u. Sjednicom su zajedno predsjedavali Velika Britanija i Njemačka. Sastanak pod okriljem NATO-a fokusiran je na koordinaciju kontinuirane međunarodne vojne podrške Ukrajini uslijed rata s Rusijom. Ukrajinska odbrambena kontakt grupa, poznata i kao Ramstein grupa, osnovana je u aprilu 2022. godine kako bi se pojednostavila i poboljšala međunarodna vojna pomoć Ukrajini kao odgovor na invaziju Rusije u punom obimu. Danas je dogovoren i najveći paket vojne pomoći Ukrajini.
Novi paketi vojne pomoći koji su obećani danas kroz ukrajinsku odbrambenu kontaktnu grupu iznose više od 21 milijarde eura. To je rekordno povećanje vojnog finansiranja Ukrajine. Velika Britanija će ove godine potrošiti 4,5 milijarde funti na vojnu podršku Ukrajini. A danas najavljujem 350 miliona funti vrijedan paket pomoći koji uključuje radarske sisteme, protutenkovske mine i 100 novih bespilotnih letjelica. Preuzimamo više odgovornosti kao Evropljani u NATO-u zajedno s Velikom Britanijom. Mislim da je današnji dan bio impresivan dokaz za ono što smo sposobni i voljni učiniti, a to je ono što se računa. Amerikanci su nam nakon dolaska nove administracije rekli da će njihov fokus biti na Pacifiku. Evropljani nam pružaju sigurnosnu pomoć i preuzeli su vodstvo u mirovnoj inicijativi. Ukrajina je podržala mirovnu inicijativu predsjednika Trumpa.
Donald Trump izjavio je u petak da je trgovinska politika njegove administracije zasnovana na carinama uspješna nakon što je Kina najavila da odgovara njegovim potezima povećanjem carina na američku robu na 125%. Odlično nam ide sa našom politikom carina, objavio je to na svojoj platformi Truth Social bez dodatnih objašnjenja. Vrlo uzbudljivo za Ameriku i svijet, sve ide brzo, rekao je. Zvaničnici Trumpove administracije pojasnili su u četvrtak da će Kina biti suočena s minimalnom carinom od 145% na sve izvoze u Sjedinjene Američke Države, uključujući ranije najavljenih dodatnih 20 uz 125%, koje je Kina objavila još ove sedmice. Kina je, reagujući na Trumpove carine, njegove politike nazvala šalom, prenosi The New York Times. Nove kineske carine koje povećavaju porez na američki uvoz za 84 na 125% stupaju na snagu u subotu, prenosi američki Newsmax. A Trump je, odgovarajući na novinarska pitanja, ove sedmice govorio o carinama Evropskoj uniji i potvrdio odbijenicu evropskoj ponudi da se ukinu međusobne carine na uvoz određenih proizvoda.
Evropska unija je bila vrlo čvrsta tokom godina. Uvijek kažem da je osnovana da ne nese štetu američkoj trgovini. Većina evropskih zemalja se ujedini kako bi stvorile monopol, odnosno jedinstvenu silu protiv Sjedinjenih država za trgovinu. Dakle, imaju NATO kroz koji su stekli ekonomsku prednost. Mi plaćamo i za njih obaveze u NATO. Plaćamo im vojnu sigurnost, a oni rade protiv naše trgovine. Na primjer, ne uzimaju naše automobile, a na naše tržište godišnje šalju milione svojih. Neće više biti tako, mora biti pošteno i recipročno. Imamo deficit od 350 milijardi dolara, ali će to brzo nestati. Jedan od načina da to postignemo jeste da Evropa bude primorana kupovati našu energiju. Možemo skupiti 350 milijardi dolara za jednu sedmicu.
Srbija je jedna od rijetkih zemalja koja nije uvela kontramjere Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama na carine. O tome je govorio i predsjednik Republike Srbije, Aleksandar Vučić, u specijalnom programu naše krovne medijske kuće Newsmax i Newsmax Balkans. O carinama je razgovarala naša kolegica iz New Yorka, Bianca de la Garza.
Wonderful. We'll take it from your studio in Sarajevo here to stateside. President Vučić, great to have you with us. Let's talk first about tariffs. It's something that has been a global discussion. President Trump just yesterday authorized a 90-day pause on those reciprocal tariffs. Countries who didn't counter. And obviously one of those is Serbia, President, because you didn't push back on the tariff. Tell us about the reset that President Trump is trying to do here when it comes to global trade.
Želi da uvede što se tiče svetske trgovine i odluku koju ste vi doneli kao predsjednik da ne uvedete protiv mere kada je predsjednik Trump objavio taj dan oslobođenja. Hvala puno. Želim samo da kažem da smo veoma zadovoljni time što je došlo do tog reseta, te pauze koje je saopštio predsjednik Trump. Dakle, imamo barem 90 dana. Kada smo čuli za odluku da je predsjednik Trump uveo carine Srbije od 37%, bili smo mirni i spokojni i krenuli smo sa razgovorima sa našim prijateljima iz Sjedinjenih država kako bismo ili videli da se te carine ukine, jer nismo želeli da uvedemo protiv mere, želeli smo da se to reši na prijateljski način. Ovo je jako dobar korak napred, veliko olakšanje za sve u čitavom svetu, a posebno ovde u Evropi. Dakle, ne samo za nas, nego i za zemlje Evropske unije. Duboko smo zahvalni na tome i nadam se da ćemo moći o tome da razgovaramo u naredna 3 meseca i ja verujem da ćemo uspeti da pronađemo nekakav najmanji zajednički sadržalac za sve nas i da nešto uradimo u korist ne samo naše dve zemlje, već i za druge.
U nastavku emisije komentar svijeta sa mojom kolegicom Damirom Ibranović. Damira, dobrodošla u Puls Planete. Lijepo je i na ovakav način da se vidimo.
Dobroveče i ka tebi i dobroveče svakako našim gledaocima. I da, moram priznati da je zanimljiva i ova pozicija. Inače smo svi mi s te tamo strane, ali evo večeras lijepa prilika da probamo i ovu poziciju.
Hvala ti za tvoje vrijeme prije svega. Hajde da počnemo od glavnih vijesti. Prije svega Gaza, uvijek u fokusu svjetske javnosti. Najmanje 12 Palestinaca iz jedne porodice je poginulo u najnovijim izraelskim napadima. Šta znamo o ovom događaju? Šta znamo? Šta su najnovije vijesti iz Gaze?
Nažalost, evo i sama znaš, pratiš to već od 7. oktobra 2023. Da ovakvi događaji nisu, nažalost, ništa novo i neobično u pojasu Gaze. Da, danas u Kan Yunisu zapravo pogođena je porodična kuća gdje je poginulo
10 ljudi iz iste porodice i još dvoje koji su se našli tu blizu. Pretpostavlja se da su to bliski ljudi ovoj porodici. Dakle, mislim, to su tragedije koje mi vjerovatno ne možemo ni zamisliti. Osim toga, pogođeni su još brojne lokacije u pojasu Gaze. Desetine su mrtvih i povrijeđenih u svim dijelovima. Dakle, niko ni u jednom dijelu pojasa Gaze nije pošteđen. I evo tako je otkako je prekinuto posljednje primirje koje je trajalo 6 sedmica i u tom periodu od primirja ovamo, osim što ljudi ginu, što je to svakodnevnica, iz Svjetske zdravstvene organizacije je stigao novi izvještaj.
I šta kaže taj izvještaj?
Izvještaj je strašan. Dakle, sve zalihe njihovih lijekova, svih medicinskih potrepština, svega što je potrebno za bolnice na samom kraju. Oni su pokušali iskoristiti to primirje da te zalihe nadoknade od ranije, ali evo ono što su uspjeli da nabave.
Zaustavljena je humanitarna pomoć.
Tako je. I to je opet, nažalost, standard evo koji vidimo sve ovo vrijeme kako se sve to dešava u Gazi. Dakle, humanitarna pomoć ne prolazi. Izraelska vojska je najavila postavljanje i novog koridora koji će dodatno još to sve da oteža. Tako da ti ljudi u pojasu Gaze bit će da su prepušteni doslovno sami sebi i sve humanitarne organizacije malo pomalo povlače svoje osoblje. Evo i nakon nedavnih događaja i medicinara koji su pronađeni u masovnoj grobnici i UN je povukao dio svojih snaga. Tako da šta će biti s tim ljudima?
Ali evo vidimo da se sve to dešava, ali međunarodna zajednica ne reaguje. Šta su najnovije brojke? Nažalost, moramo govoriti o brojkama poginulih civila u opkoljenoj enklavi. Šta su brojke koje su poznate danas?
Brojka ubijenih, zvanična brojka ubijenih prešla je 50.000, dakle skoro je dosegla 51.000. O ranjenima vjerovatno da je uzaludno i govoriti jer skoro svaka porodica, skoro svaka osoba je već na neki način ili ranjena ili pati na neki drugi način, dakle neuhranjenost i sve su to problemi s kojima se Palestinci u pojasu Gaze pa i djelimično sa istim problemima i na zapadnoj obali suočavaju, tako da
ICC, Međunarodni krivični sud, već je davno zatražio izručenje Netanjahua i Galanta Hagu. Da li misliš da će ikada doći do tog momenta? Evo, uzimajući u obzir da je Netanjahu već i boravio u jednoj evropskoj zemlji, Mađarskoj, nakon čega je i Orban u petak odlučio da se povuče iz Međunarodnog krivičnog suda. Kakvi nas momenti čekaju uzimajući upravo sad ove činjenice u obzir?
Pitala si šta mislim, hoće li Galant i Netanjahu biti izručeni?
Da li postoji mogućnost u međunarodnoj javnosti da može doći do tog momenta?
Pa tehnički da postoji, ali evo ja neću iznositi svoje mišljenje, vodit ću se izjavama ljudi s kojima sam ja razgovarala kroz emisije i mimo kamera, s ljudima koji su stručnjaci, ljudi koji su novinari, pravnici i slične stvari. Oni kažu da misle da nikada do toga neće doći, iako postoji osnov, inače Međunarodni krivični sud ne bi podigao, zapravo ne bi raspisao potjernicu za njima da nema osnova za genocidne radnje. To naravno nije dokazano, ne možemo govoriti o genocidu zvaničnom, ali sve ukazuje na to, mada svi znamo koliko je Izrael lobistički jaka država, koliko je njihov status u svijetu jak, tako da čisto sumnjam da će doći do toga, teško da mogu biti procesuirane na ovaj način.
Hajde da poslušamo što je rekao upravo Orban upravo o izlasku Mađarske iz Međunarodnog krivičnog suda.
Miért nem tartóztattuk le Izrael állam miniszterelnökét dacára annak, hogy a Nemzetközi Büntetőbíróság ezt elvárta volna, akkor 3 választ is tudunk adni. Az első, nem szokás. Tehát magyarul nem szoktuk letartóztatni a vendégeket. A második dolog, hogy nem akartuk. Mert Izrael a barátunk, és a külpolitikának az értelme és célja egy ország számára, hogy barátokat gyűjtsön. És az jó, hogyha Izrael egyébként Magyarországnak nem ellensége, még csak nem is egy közömbös ország, hanem a barátja. És a harmadik dolog, még ha akartuk volna, akkor sem tudtuk volna a rendőröket utasítani arra, hogy ezt tegyék meg, mert nem hirdettük ki sohasem, nem tettük a magyar jog részévé ezt a nemzetközi szerződést. Tehát mondhatjuk, hogy a miniszterelnök 1000%-os biztonságban volt Magyarországon.
Mi nastavljamo dalje. Damira, Ukrajina. 3 godine, više od 3 godine sada rata u Ukrajini. Ove sedmice delegacije Rusije i Sjedinjenih Američkih Država borave u Istanbulu. Drugi put sjede zajedno za stolom. Šta je rečeno i o čemu se tu radi?
Pa ovo je presedan, reći ću, barem u posljednjih pa i nekoliko decenija, dakle nakon hladnog rata, nema puno slučajeva kada su ruska delegacija i američka sjedile za istim stolom. Tu i tamo se predsjednici susretnu, ali delegacije i na ovom nivou na kojem su se sastali zapravo u Istanbulu i s ovim razlozima još rjeđe nego što se predsjednici sreću. Zapravo o ovim sastancima, odnosno ovim povodima, bilo je govora i u Rijadu, kada su bili mirovni pregovori vezani za Ukrajinu, odnosno tu su bile špekulacije, evo ovim sad su potvrđene te špekulacije da zapravo Amerika i Rusija pokušavaju poboljšati svoje odnose preko Ukrajine, odnosno nakon što isposluju nešto za Ukrajinu, da će više isposlovati za sebe. I evo ovi sastanci koji su zapravo na privrednom, gospodarskom, energetskom nivou, znači za te sektore, za saradnju između te dvije države na diplomatskom nivou gdje pokušavaju da poprave te diplomatske odnose. Evo to se dokazuje da su te špekulacije nakon Rijada bile tačne.
Da. Kao što sam rekla, više od 3 godine rata u Ukrajini, kakav je presjek stanja?
Pa i kao ovaj rat, kao što rekla, s 3 godine traje, brojke se neumoljivo mijenjaju i ja ih ne mogu više popamtiti, inače sam loša u pamćenju brojeva, pa ću ih pročitati, ali zaista su zastrašujuće s obzirom da je 21. vijek, da je u pitanju Evropa, dakle tlo koje bi trebalo biti obilježeno demokratijom i nekim razvojem i nekim drugim ljepšim stvarima, a ne ratom. Dakle, do danas, od početka rata, 30.000 civila prema zvaničnim podacima, a vjerovatno je to puno više. Vjeruje se da su vojni gubici više od 150.000 ukrajinskih i ruskih vojnika da su poginuli ili ranjeni. Više od 14 miliona ljudi je moralo napustiti svoje domove. Dakle, samim tim imamo najveću izbjegličku krizu u Evropi od Drugog svjetskog rata, a o infrastrukturi, o onome svemu što će se morati nadoknaditi nakon rata, mislim da je u ovom momentu apsolutno nemoguće govoriti, jer će to biti milijarde dolara, eura, rublji ili ko već ponudi se da pomogne i negdje Evropska unija.
Ili da da kredit, da kažemo.
Ili da da kredit, što će za Ukrajinu biti vjerovatno s ekonomske strane pogubno. Ali evo, ja bih voljela prvo se ovaj rat zaustavi, da ljudi prestanu da ginu, da se ljudi mogu vratiti tamo odakle su otišli, pa ćemo onda o obnovi ekonomiji.
Tako je.
I tako je nekako bilo i u ratu u Bosni i Hercegovini. Znamo kako je to sve išlo. I evo, danas imamo izgrađenu državu 30 godina nakon, ali te stvari će se dešavati polako. U ovom momentu je najvažnije da taj rat stane i zbog Evrope, prvenstveno zbog ljudi koji ginu, što vojske, što civila.
Tako je. Damira, hvala mnogo da onda nam izvještaju.
Hvala tebi što si me ugostila.
Hvala mnogo. Bila ovo moja kolegica Damira Ibranović u komentaru iz svijeta. Ostanite uz nas. $20 godina rata, hiljade izgubljenih života, milijarde dolara i onda povlačenje u totalnom haosu. U samo nekoliko dana zemlja koju su ugradile generacije Amerikanaca i Afganistanaca pala je u ruke Talibana. Škole su zatvorene, žene izbrisane iz javnog života, a nade o slobodi zgažene čizmama ekstremista. Danas razgovaramo s onima koji su i bili tamo, onima koji su nosili uniformu i srce i koji se danas pitaju zašto. I'm being joined by American veteran Emirom Hadžić, who's joining me from St. Louis, Missouri. Emir, welcome to the program and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Ika. It's always a pleasure to be on your programs. It's been a while, so happy to see you again.
It's so happy to see you too, Emir. Before we start on this very sensitive topic, let's explain to our audiences who don't know you who you really are. You have Bosnian first and last name, and you come from this area. Tell us something about you.
So currently, I am a political analyst, commentator, and advocate. I work a great deal with federal government as well as state government on a multitude of different issues, whether it be human rights or veterans' rights. Before that, I was a career U.S. Marine. I served for 20 years of active duty, deployed 8 times, 3 times in combat to Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as my deployed service on related to the operations in North Africa. And one of my personal favorites, the participation over on NATO's eastern flank in Eastern Europe. I retired in 2016. But before all of that, I was a Bosnian refugee here in the United States of America. I initially settled in March 95 to San Jose, California. And after after Dayton Accords were signed and United States started deploying their forces to Bosnia and Herzegovina as part of the stabilization force and implementation force, I signed up. I didn't really plan on staying in for 20 years, but when 9/11 happened in the United States, I was still on active duty. And it just felt at that time, well, I should not leave active service now. I have to join in this noble fight against global terrorism. And I had my chance several times with mixed results.
Yes.
I grew up in
mixed feelings too, right?
Yeah, very much, very much. Mixed results lead to mixed feelings, as it were. But I think having grown up in Bosnia and having been in Bosnia up until 95 throughout the war, it kind of gave me particular skill sets that my American colleagues just simply did not have, to kind of look at the things from the perspective of the people at the nations where we were deployed to.
And one of those nations is Afghanistan. I think it's very important to go back to that country. Ever since 2021, no one has really spoken about it. The country is deteriorating. Human rights, women's rights, girls' rights are deteriorating as well. And I think it's very important to bring that topic back on air and to really discuss it. What happened since 21, since Biden pulled the United States and the allies from Afghanistan, and since it fell into the hands of Taliban. So we tend to forget these countries and we tend to forget these people. So I think it's important we remember tonight, especially because you were there. You know what it was like, and you know what kind of state the country was in. And so let's talk about it. So looking back at your service in Afghanistan, how did you personally perceive this exact mission? And do you feel it was undone by the way the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan?
Well, our mission in Afghanistan was fairly simple. In response to Al-Qaeda's terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, obviously, Al-Qaeda and its leadership was operating out of Afghanistan and were under protection of, at the time, government of Taliban. Taliban 1.0, if I may call him such. United States had a very limited diplomatic relationship with Taliban 1.0, and all the calls for them to turn over the planners of 9/11 attacks fell on deaf ears, which is in violation of international law, international norms. I mean, I understand that Taliban have their tribal codes as well, but if they want to be treated as a legitimate government, they need to operate as a legitimate government. So we were faced with a situation. I mean, if you recall that famous speech that President George W. Bush, standing on the rubble of World Trade Center in New York City, accompanied by New York's finest firefighters, when he was giving a speech through a bullhorn, and somebody from the crowd said, "We can't hear you." And then George Bush turned up his bullhorn and said, "Can you hear me?" And pretty soon the whole world will hear us. And that statement exploded in American society as pretty much the statement, not just to Taliban and Al-Qaeda, but to the entire world. It was like a clarion call. Mm-hmm. It was also a time, I mean, it's kind of ironic how the current American administration's relationship with NATO is, because United States is the only member of NATO who invoked Article 4 and 5. And our allies answered a call, and they deployed with us to Afghanistan to help stabilize that country. Our mission there was to destroy Al-Qaeda, secure Afghanistan so it can never be used as a base of operations for attacks against our homeland, being the United States. And obviously consisted of several different elements like overthrowing the Taliban and installing a democratically elected government as soon as possible. Destroy Al-Qaeda. Now, the mission statement was destroyed. It wasn't degrade or, reduce capabilities. It was destroy Al-Qaeda. So we did hunt suspected Al-Qaeda affiliates and members relentlessly.
But Emir, I want to talk about the atmosphere. What was the atmosphere like on the ground during the tours that you did during your deployment? Were there signs that the Afghan government or army wouldn't hold without U.S. support? What can we say about that?
Well, I mean, their condition evolved as the time went. Now, from what I understand, I did not join the fight in Afghanistan until 2006, January 2006. But what I heard from my friends from the special operations community, at the beginning, like we're talking, November 2001, early 2002, there were very few Americans on the ground. Largely, most of the fighting was done by a handful of our operators who were enabled by larger formations of Afghans who were tired of Taliban's rule, or they saw the writing on the paper, so opportunists joined our cause to kick Taliban out of the land. And our footprint was very, 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 very small. However, as politics in the United States and the Pentagon politics always have it, you have these powerful generals and powerful lobbies who, convince decision makers or deciders, as George W. Bush famously coined. Well, actually, Saturday Night Live coined that term, attributed to George Bush. Yeah. But and then all of a sudden we have these large formations, we have these divisions, we have these regiments all over Afghanistan. So it went from, uprooting the Taliban and locating Al-Qaeda, destroy them. It almost felt like an occupation. So that euphoria started shifting to curiosity. There was no outright hostility that I noticed in 2006. And again, let's be real. Afghanistan is not a homogenous country. I mean, Afghanistan is rather diverse for its neighborhood. So different results were different everywhere. I mean, Mazar-e-Sharif was wonderful. I mean, tourists could have gone to Mazar-e-Sharif for pretty much the entire duration of Operation Enduring Freedom and what ensued afterwards. But where we were in Jalalabad in eastern Afghanistan, close to Pakistani border, those were a little more tumultuous times because you had largely misinformed religious radicals coming out of these valleys from the mountaintops and destroying the infrastructure, targeting average Afghans under excuse, well, no, we're targeting invaders. And I really do not recall any particular economic interests that United States would have had in Afghanistan. I've heard some theories, but those were just theories. I am being real with you when I tell you that when I stand by my previous statement, what our mission was there.
Yeah.
I mean, we were training security forces so that way we didn't have to stay there forever. We were helping and aiding Afghan government to run its own country again, so we wouldn't have to stay there forever. It's just that it took far too long for American public's attention span.
Yeah, so, and then 2021 happened, 2 decades later.
Yeah.
Now,
when America's longest war.
Exactly, like we said in the beginning, all right, we remember that Biden administration defended this withdrawal as something that was overdue and that was necessary. Now, from your military perspective, and something that we've been through together when we were helping journalists and women during the withdrawal, we remembered how chaotic the whole thing was. Now, from your perspective...
Yeah, colloquially nicknamed Operation Digital Dunkirk. Thousands of military veterans, journalists, intelligence operatives, software developers from Silicon Valley all worked in unison, you know, some through Slack channels, some through other means of communication, but it was a historic moment.
It was a historic moment, but you think from a military perspective,
where government viewed to be,
that there was a better and safer way to exit than what the Biden administration did. Was there a better way? I mean, just to get up
I cannot
and
answer
leave.
that honestly.
I mean, from your perspective, what do you think? Was there any other way to do this? And not to leave some of the civilians who were really at risk just hanging there.
Well, look, there's million ways of preparing a lamb. You know, there's a million ways of preparing this type of operation, which was technically called non-combatant evacuation operation, which is something that we train for in the military. State Department is in charge of of evacuation strategy, but the military is in charge of tactics and work on the ground. Could it have been done better? Yes, of course. Hindsight is 2020. Was it overdue? Was our withdrawal overdue? 100%, in every possible way. We probably should have withdrawn as soon as Afghan government stood on their feet and withdrawn with the threat, hey, if anybody externally starts moving in, we're going to come right back. But we didn't do that. We, decided to do it slowly until we apparently overstayed our welcome. And most importantly, we overstayed American public's patience, who started asking questions. We had an agreement with Taliban that we would, during Trump administration, the deal with Taliban was negotiated with our ambassador Khalilzad and Taliban representatives, I believe, in Doha, Qatar, where we had to withdraw by May of 2021. Biden administration decided, no, we need more time. But the fact of the matter is, we kind of lost our war. We lost our leverage once we started negotiating from the point of weakness, because the writing was on the wall. Americans are not staying here much longer. We want out, and we need to get out of here and still save face. But we didn't. We lost face. And, how can I put it?
Just honestly.
Look, the win, the victory has many of fathers, but loss is an orphan. So we ended up having just too many people throwing too many accusations at each other. I mean, one of my good friends who worked in the cabinet, I would rather not name him in public, but what he described me, the situation at the National Security Council was almost like two camps at war with each other. You had a Secretary of State camp and National Security Advisors camp going at each other, and it was just very unpleasant time to be in the administration. It was unpleasant time to be an American citizen. It was unpleasant time to be American veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom. And most of all, it was the most unpleasant to be Afghan caught in that disaster.
Absolutely. I want to talk about that exactly. I want to talk about and to try to describe the human cost of this withdrawal, both in terms of Afghan civilians and also the U.S. allies who are left behind. We've seen civilians that lost their human rights, just like I said in the beginning. Girls lost their right to education. Women lost the right to their public service, their jobs.
The worst of all, they lost their basic human right of having a voice.
Yes, they lost their voice. As simple as that, something that we take for granted in West. Here I am sitting talking to you, and I can say exactly what's on my mind, as long as I keep my integrity, my journalistic, my human integrity. Imagine someone takes that away from me. Now, what am I then? You understand? It is the human cost of this withdrawal is incredibly high, and some of the people, we know them personally. What would you what message did the U.S. send under Biden's administration to the allies around the world when it comes to this human cost, when it comes to loss of the voice and basic human rights of the civilians in Afghanistan, especially women and children, girls, just like I said? What kind of message are we really sending to the Western world? This is something that we can allow to happen somewhere else where we spent 20 years.
No, I believe we sent a consistent message with us. Now, granted, I'm looking at it through glass half empty, given a solemn topic that we're talking about. I mean, the consistent message that I'm talking about is that our foreign policy is fickle. You know, during one administration, you'll have it this way, but who knows what the next administration is going to bring. And I think a lot of that has to do with our weakening of American legislative branch of government, ceding power to the executive branch of government, where, you know, we've had several presidents now who have ruled by decrees, who have ruled by executive orders, and that had a direct impact on our foreign policy, on our economic policy. So that's basically what we sent, and unfortunately, that message plays right into the hands of our adversaries and our near-peer competitive powers, because they have been telling the rest of the world Americans are unreliable. But thankfully, what I've seen consistently, what I believe we all seen consistently, who have studied the United States, is the United States does improve, get better. Our history doesn't show that we've always stood for rights and principles that we espouse verbally, but we've always had them as our guiding North Star. So, yes, a great deal of our allies felt a great deal of anxiety. And I mean, do you think that it's a coincidence that President Putin decided to full-scale invade Ukraine just a year, not even a full year after our withdrawal from Afghanistan? You know, I believe he fully believed that United States is going to fail to unite the free world and provide direct assistance to Ukraine for its survival. So, yeah, the message was terrible, but it was consistent.
It was consistent. And now looking forward, what lessons do you believe that we have learned as a public, as journalists, veterans, military personnel, politicians, citizens of the world? What have we learned from the Afghanistan story, and what are we doing to ensure it really never happens again?
Well, what we've learned that never say never. It's going to happen again. Maybe not in Afghanistan, it's going to happen somewhere else. Afghanistan has become such a, I mean, we left Taliban in better condition, by far better condition than the way we found them in 2001. Because remember, in 2001, Taliban did not control the entire country. Now they, for all intents and purposes, do. Taliban
and also, we must not forget that they have the weapons that are
that's exactly
are being
what
left
I'm getting
behind.
to. Yeah.
So
yes,
they're more
I mean, we're
armed.
talking about 80 billion, better armed. We left bases behind, which they're using as training centers now. You know, when we found them in 2001, they were poorly armed with Hilux pickup trucks and old Russian firearms. But now they have some of the most modern infantry weapons available. Thankfully, they don't know how to maintain our Black Hawks. You know, they're going to fly until they no longer do. And that's that. But it's just absolutely insane to me that they inherited the most. But unfortunately, that's the cost of war. You know, when we behaved as if, hey, we didn't lose this war, we're just leaving. Good luck, Afghan National Security Forces. But what could they have done? What could they have done when they were so dependent on us supporting their logistics? What could they have done when just months prior to us quietly leaving the biggest military base in Afghanistan, Bagram Air Base, we left it quietly without even telling our Afghan hosts we're leaving. We just turned lights off, got on the airplane and left. And at that point, the only military presence that we had were Marines deployed to, or Marines assigned to embassy in Kabul. It's nuts. And what was Afghan security? What were Afghan security forces to do when a few months prior to us leaving Bagram, we released 5,000 prisoners kept at the jail over there? 5,000 hardcore militants. That's like giving the enemy like 2 divisions. We're not talking about battalions, regiments, 2 divisions of infantrymen ready to fight, ready to go, and pissed off as ever. What did we expect?
Yeah.
We made series of blunders leading up to the withdrawal. That the massacre at Abbey Gate was macabre, excuse my language, macabre cherry on the top, rotting cherry on the top. And so many people lost their lives. And it did not have to be that way. But, speaking to my Afghan friends, they say it was God's will. And so I guess we Americans can wash our conscience in that hope that it was just God's will.
Off of that. Emir, I will end our conversation on that note. I want to thank you for taking time to speak with us and sharing these very powerful thoughts and, of course, your experience over there. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Of course, Ika, it's always my pleasure. Always a pleasure to see you, be with your audiences. And, I really enjoy Newsmax Balkans. When we were talking about what language should we use, I figured let's use English. It's the least controversial. Us people from Balkans, we can make color purple controversial for crying out loud. So,
come on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Bio ovo Emir Hadžić, vojni veteran, američki vojni veteran. Mi se vraćamo odmah. I za kraj, Newsmax pomjera granice. Uspješno je realiziran intervju iz studija u 3 zemlje. Newsmax Balkans je prva 4K news televizija u regionu. Medijski smo partner američke televizije Newsmax, koja obara rekorde u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama. Prema podacima Nielsena, gledanost Newsmaxa u prvom kvartalu tekuće godine porasla je za 50% u odnosu na isti period prošle godine.
Naravno, ja mislim da su informacije ne samo moćne, već da je istina zarazna i u ovom trenutku ovdje u Americi. Vidimo kako se to širi Evropom. Postoji moćni glas ljudi koji kažu glasat ćemo za one koje podržavamo, imat ćemo demokratije koje će procvjetati sa liderima koje želimo da nas predstavljaju. Ali to sve počinje od novinarstva. I posle toliko godina u poslu, ja znam zašto sam ja počela ovim da se bavim, da damo glas onima koji ga nemaju. A sada idemo u Sarajevu, Ika je sa nama, kao što smo rekli, kao što kažemo na Balkanu. Kakav je vaš utisak u Sarajevu posle nekoliko nedelja emitovanja? Šta vi kažete, šta kažu gledalci? Ovo je 3. nedelja emitovanja. Mi imamo malu ekipu, ali vrlo posvećeni. Gledalci to primećuju. Feedback koji dobijamo, znači pokažuju radoznalost i poštovanje. I naravno, mi obrađujemo i osjetljiva pitanja i upravo postavljamo takva osjetljiva pitanja. Ova platforma je prostor za uravnoteženije izveštavanje. To je nešto što je preko potrebno svima na Zapadnom Balkanu. Mi smo posvećeni novinarskom integritetu i toga ćemo se pridržavati. Hvala Ika, hvala Janka, bila mi je čast da razgovaram sa vama večeras. Ika će ostati još sa nama.
Toliko u Pulsu planete za ovu sedmicu. Ove i ostale vijesti potražite na našem sajtu newsmaxbalkans.com kao i na našim društvenim mrežama. Doviđenja.